Hey everyone, it's Alex, and welcome to the Marvel Snap Decks of the Week, the weekly series where I showcase the top 10 best decks in Marvel Snap. And if you'd like to support my content, hitting the like button is the best thing you can do. It's free, and as I always say, it's the only thing that YouTube cares about. With that being said, let's get started with deck number 1, and it's Agent Havoc. Now, we're going a little bit out of order here, and I'll explain why. Generally speaking, the way we do things for this video is we rank everything via untap-based statistics, the most recent 7 days, top 50% infinite. We do 200 games and plus of a sample size, and we also go 6,000 collection level and above. Try to give us the best kind of filters to give us the most accurate data as we can. However, this deck falls under the games played filter, and I take issue with that. So while theoretically it disqualifies itself from this list, I had to use it as the number 10 because I actually have been playing a lot of this deck. I think it's super good, and there's been a couple different variations of this Havoc-based Agent Venom deck, and this is the latest one. It is doing so well. It's just not seeing as much play. So I wanted to kind of highlight it, and yes, obviously the statistics can wildly change as more people play it, but this has been a very high-performing deck. I don't want people to sleep on it, and it's a lot of fun to play. So I wanted to showcase it despite the fact it falls a little bit outside of our criteria that we utilize, but honestly, Agent Havoc, there's been a couple different iterations of it. I featured one a couple weeks ago and last week. It has continued to be a remarkable archetype. I really like it a lot, and I'm pretty sure those of you that have tried them have liked it too, so I just want to kind of showcase this. So anyways, at number 10, we do have Agent Havoc, despite the fact we're breaking the rules ever so slightly. And then we go to number 9, and believe it or not, it's Arishem. Arishem does make a bit of a comeback this week at a 56% win rate, but a cube rate that's a little on like the, it's fine side of 0.27. Generally speaking, we like to see cube rates above 0.30. That's generally where we consider good, but I mean, 0.27 is still positive, of course, which is at the very least what you'd expect from a top 10 video. But we do have some changes here. We have some interesting kind of plays here. I like the LDS in this deck, right? You don't see a lot of Lady Deathstrike in decks like this. Galacta obviously being a key component to the success of these decks. And then you have Doom 2099. We're seeing lots of variations of Doom 2099. And so this deck is very interesting in the sense that it's going to run Doom 2099. And has been very successful exactly that. The Killmonger is tech because honestly, you're seeing a lot of these Agent Havoc type strategies at high MMRs, and generally speaking, Killmonger tends to be a pretty predictable kind of tech play against the Nebulas you're seeing, which are a core component of a lot of the Rocket and Groot decks. Overall, a very interesting deck. If you're looking to do a new flavor on Arishem, this would be the one. Going to number 8, we have Galacta 2099. I mean, we're just a couple weeks removed from, well, basically 1 week removed from non-stop 2099 decks. So we've had some time for the meta to shift and settle a little bit. We had new card releases come out. And so which ones have risen to the top? Well, Galacta 2099 is running a 56% win rate and an astonishing 0.41 cube rate, which marks like a fantastic deck if you're looking to play some Doom 2099. Galacta has been great in this. It kind of breaks my heart to see that the Galacta decks are often cutting the Captain Marvel, who I still think is a remarkable player in those decks. I do like the Vision in the Galacta decks as well. And of course, you have the Doom 2099 with the Doctor Dooms and the Magnetos. What's interesting here is the Luke Cage play. Luke Cage tends to be a very good solid play, considering that some of the best decks in the meta are running a lot of toxic base cards, including Rocket and Groot. However, you are seeing Ajax decks that are massively high-performing decks, which we'll talk about later. So Luke Cage is honestly a pretty good tech piece for the current meta if you're looking for something along those lines. Then we go to Rocket the Bifrost, which is a very interesting deck. Now, I wanted to feature this because it is running a 57% win rate, so statistically, it's kind of in that threshold that we're looking for. Its cube rate at 0.21 is a little lower. I think that there's going to be better decks that you can kind of experiment with, specifically with Rocket and Groot. However, I think that this was an interesting take. It was very interesting to see Heimdall kind of implemented into a deck like this. I thought that it was kind of an interesting little splash there, and you do have the Scream Shell as well, but I just wanted to showcase this because I thought it was a kind of an interesting little take with the Heimdall splash, which obviously people are not going to be expecting, and so naturally you could also move with Rocket and Groot and then Heimdall them into a different location. It's a little bit of a, zigzag and shimmy, so I do think that's pretty neat, but overall I think there's better decks on this list. I want to showcase it though, because when was the last time we talked about Heimdall? Pretty much never. So anyways, there's that one there. As we go to the top 6 here, this is going to be the more reliable version of Scream being played right now, which you do have the Sandman here, you do have the Doom 2099, Doctor Doom, and you do have the Scream component as well. So you have like a number of different things going for you here. You have the Scream lines where you use the Spider-Mans, the Polaris, and etc. Obviously the Arrow and the Magnetos, and then you have the Doom base lines. And we've seen decks over the last couple of months do this very successfully, where they essentially have like these multiple winning conditions in the sense that like they have like plan A and they have plan B. And in this case, you know, that's exactly what you have here. Red Guardian, excellent tech piece in this deck. I was playing Red Guardian, and you know, oftentimes I'm hitting things like Iron Man. I'm hitting things like you know, Luke Cage's. There's a lot of options for Red Guardian right now, so he continues to be a very good piece in the meta. So if you're looking for a 2099 deck, Scream 2099 is a good performer. That takes us into the top 5, and we do have Galactus Surfer. Now, this was a very interesting deck that I think surprised a lot of people. It utilizes a lot of the Eternals. You do have Phastos and Makari in this deck, Galacta, of course, and then you got a lot of the buff-based mechanics in Okoye and Nakia. Honestly, this general shell has proven to be pretty successful. I like the Chavez in it as well. You always got to cope a little bit, play a little Chavez every once in a while, since, you know, I've personally have missed her since she got changed, but you haven't seen many decks with America Chavez. In fact, she almost feels like a buff candidate at times, but I mean, statistically, she still puts up a lot of decent energy if you at least play the card that she buffs. So Galactus Surfer at a 58% win rate, and a 0.38 cube rate is performing very well. However, it's not the best Surfer deck that we have on this list, and I'm actually excited to showcase that to you. But still, if you're looking for an Eternals-based Surfer deck, you got one here, and it's doing a lot of work in the current meta. And then we go to number 4. And it's still Clog. Clog actually fell off for a bit. And then we saw a couple changes to it. Like here we do have the Daredevil and the Hobgoblin combination. This is kind of the key change, the iterative change that's happened to these Clog-based decks. And I do like it a lot. In my testing, like I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot. I really do like knowing what they're going to do on turn 5. So Daredevil felt awesome in that perspective. Obviously, Daredevil feels a little worse if you pull him a little later, but what was interesting about him was that when I played Daredevil on turn 2, and then I Green Goblin on turn 3 or whatever, and then I had like a very clean line near the end of the game where I could like Doc Ock, Hobgoblin, and then I could Cannonball, or then I just the Red Hulk, right? So, but generally speaking, playing Daredevil into Green Goblin, into the Doc Ock, into the kind of like Hobgoblin with Vision, it felt pretty good. Like, I really liked how this played a lot, and it doesn't surprise me it's running a 59% win rate and a 0.39 cube rate. So ultimately, a really interesting new take on Cannon Clog. And if you want to kind of go after those pesky 2099 decks, well, this is a way that you can do exactly that. And that takes us into the top 3 here. And believe it or not, we have a Destroy deck making it to the top 3. And I featured this deck a little bit ago, and I was like, you know what? Like, I think that people are kind of sleeping on Destroy. And the sample size in this game was not particularly large, but it's running a 60% win rate at a 0.37 cube rate. Like, that is great for Destroy. And interestingly enough, it's running Agony. It's running Lady Deathstrike. And I think these are kind of interesting in the standpoint that obviously Agony works really well with the Deadpool, but if you don't get that line, you can still play Agony X23. You can do Agony Wolverine. Like, there's multiple ways that you can utilize Agony. She tends to perform pretty well here. And generally speaking, in playing this deck, I found myself able to get enough of like Destroy momentum going that I was getting high quality nulls. I was getting well discounted deaths. And so I felt like I had options going into a lot of these turn 6s, which often, like, I think is the way Destroy tends to want to play, of course, naturally, if you're going to run something like Death. But generally speaking, it's also worth noting that Killmonger is a great tech piece right now because you're seeing so many Nebulas out there with all the testing for Rocket and Groot that's happening, because Nebula has tended to make a lot of those early deck lists as well. So anyways, Destroy doing very well in the current meta. And that takes us to the number 2 deck of the week. And I gotta tell you guys, I'm super excited because this is my deck. I was so happy to see the stats on this here. This is the deck I featured in my Rocket Raccoon and Groot review video. And I said like, hey guys, I ran like a 90% win rate while testing. I was not lying. And now we have a 63% win rate deck with a 0.51 cube rate. It is the highest performing deck that I've ever like basically seen on Untapped from my design. And it's doing wonderfully. It's doing so good. Copycat's been an absolute winner. Gladiator's been an absolute winner. Nebula and Groot's been an absolute winner. And you got the Okoye and Nakia, and naturally, the card, the coup de grace here, honestly, is Rogue. When I look at this deck and I kind of reflect on why it's been so successful, I think Galacta did a massive amount for Surfer as a whole. But honestly, this Rogue right now is crushing people. It's crushing people. It's taking so many valuable targets away. And sometimes even against like some of like the toxic based decks, which are kind of getting more popular, you rogue their Luke Cage, like they can't do it. Like that's just GG. It's over because like they're gonna destroy their whole side and your side's unaffected and their Ajax is useless and etc. This has been such a good deck. I've really liked it. And so I hope that like those of you guys that caught my release day kind of review video for Rocket and Grill, I hope you guys enjoyed piloting this deck because like honestly, it's been crushing the meta and it's kind of been really heartwarming to see. It feels good to knock one out of the park every once in a while, you know what I mean? So, and I brought some spice here, right? I had the Gladiator, the Copycat, I got the Rogue, I had some spice, some actual spice, and it paid off. It legitimately paid off. So I'm just a little excited about it, you know? So anyways, that's number 2. And as we go to our number 1 deck of the week, it's Toxic Ajax, guys. Toxic Ajax, I just finished saying, is a major player in the current meta. It has been legit one of the absolute banger decks. Now, I actually double-checked the stats here. I was like, man, 64% winner, 0.70 cube rate. This is literally what Untapped says right now. Again, top 50% infinite, 200 games plus, last 7 days, 6,000 plus collection level. This is the stats I have as of recording. So, I mean, I'm not going to argue with the stats. It's performing very well, and it shouldn't surprise you because this Ajax deck and just Ajax decks in general have been performing exceptionally well. I think a major component of them as well is the surprise factor of Malekith. I think that Malekith can provide you with a lot of snap equity, and I do like it. I've been playing decks like similar to this as well. I did some experimentation actually with a Rocket and Groot list similar where I kind of made some changes, and although this ultimately I feel like takes the cake as just a solid overall option, I feel like there's still some room to experiment. And like, you know, you have the US agent meta call right now. So overall, like if you want to play Ajax, like now's a perfect time. It is legit a perfect time. The stats don't lie. It's performing wonderfully. Just like I hope you perform wonderfully in your high voltage and of course in your ranked games closing out the season. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you, and we'll see you on that next one.